Festive Brilliance is finally here, and it's honestly surprisingly good. On it are 4 featured characters, 2 standard characters, and 2 reruns of limited characters, all happening on the same banner. And here's the twist. There are 0 other 6-star characters in the lost pool for this banner, meaning that you can only get Laevatain, Gilberta, Bogman, and Ardellia. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over all of the characters to give you a better idea of who exactly you should be going for. My name is Braxophone, you can call me Brax, and let's talk about the Festive Brilliance banner. Now, before I get into what every character does well, I want to go over what makes this banner so good. So first off, this banner is like a regular character rate-up banner, except instead of having a huge lost pool of different characters that you can lose a 50-50 to, you have a 25-75 to get the character that you want out of this pool of 4 characters. However, if you want more than 1 character from this pool, that chance goes up. If you want Pog, Laevatain, and Gilberta, you have a 75% chance of getting the character you want when you hit a 6-star character, and the hard pity for being able to choose a character that you want is going to be 120 pulls. Now, the interesting thing about this is that you can still get 6 stars earlier than the 120 pull mark, but the selector at 120 doesn't actually go away if you get an early character. So for example, if you want Gilberta and Laevatain and you happen to get Gilberta early, you can still pick Laevatain at the end. Now, the downside of this banner is that 80 pulls in, you don't have that same guarantee that you would have on a rate up limited banner, so you are not guaranteed to get any early characters. I'm just saying that if it happens, you don't lose your ability to pick who you get at the end. And on the upside for this banner, it also gives you a secondary target to go after if you already pulled the limited rate up character, but you still want more arsenal tickets to get them their weapon. This is not only a way for new players to get old units, but it's also a way for older players to get units they missed, pick up copies of units, and also build up arsenal tickets if they're just short of getting the weapon they want. On top of that, this banner does still have the regular bonus pulls that you would get like in other banners, except they work a little bit differently. At 30 pulls, you do get a free 10 pull that doesn't count towards pity like the regular banners, and at 60 pulls, you get a standard 10 pull. And lastly, for people who are spending money on the banners, every 240 pulls that you do, you'll get a free token that allows you to choose a copy of any of the 4 listed characters. Don't get me wrong, the system's not perfect, but I do feel like it has quite a few positives, especially if you are a new player or a returning player that wants to get some of the older units. So with all that being said, let's go over what the units actually do and which ones are going to be the best ones to pull for. The first character I want to talk about is Laevatain, who is absolutely stunning. This character was the first limited rate up character to appear in Arknights Endfield, though you could pull the next 2 characters on her limited rate up banner. And typically in gacha games, we see the first unit in the game be a character that ends up getting power crept a little bit along the way. But because Endfield so far as of making this video doesn't have endgame content that is so significantly difficult that it walls out any characters, it's really hard to say whether or not power creep even means anything to this character or to any of the limited characters on the roster. What I can tell you is that Laevatain is able to do a significant amount of damage, but she excels in AoE. She's a very strong fire character that has a wide range of attacks, and when using her ultimate, she's able to sweep over large areas and dish out tons of fire damage. One of the best things about Laevatain, though, is that she's so free-to-play friendly. Her best teammates are basically all 4 stars and 5 stars, with the exception of 1, and even that 6-star is free. When paired with Ontal for heat amp and heat susceptibility, she can dish out a lot more damage, and she also functions very well with characters like Wolfguard, who are able to apply a lot of heat inflictions. Due to Laevatain's Scorching Heart passive, you want to apply heat infliction to enemies as much as you can because it's going to allow for her to get stacks of Melting Flame, which helps enhance her battle skill for massive damage. Akekuri is another fantastic support for Laevatain, and basically everyone else in the game, to be honest, because she can use Thermite Cutter to buff your team's attack and also grant a ton of SP to your team, which just helps accelerate the team's damage. On top of that, her skill is able to apply heat infliction to lots of enemies at once if they are all in one area, and this is huge for Laevatain and especially helpful for things like farming tons of mobs in AoE. She also has access to new frontier set pieces that make her much easier to use in basically every team, but I just wanted to point that out because Akekuri was already good at the start of the game, but she's even better now. And the one 6-star character that pairs exceptionally well with Laevatain is actually Ardellia, who you get for free. Ardellia is able to forcibly apply corrosion to enemies, which is going to trigger the combo skill of Laevatain, which also will grant her another stack of Melting Flame for her enhanced battle skill. Ardellia makes Laevatain feel super easy to play, and overall, with the right team setups, Laevatain is still incredibly strong. But since we were just talking about her, let's talk about Ardellia a little bit. Ardellia is a fantastic healer that you're able to get for free by starting up Arknights Endfield and playing for a few days. And I'm honestly really surprised they gave her out for free because she is absolutely incredible. So her skill and her ult are able to heal you by dropping a bunch of cute little sheep around. And honestly, the healing mechanic itself is a little annoying because I don't like sprinting around to pick up heals, but her ult does put out so many of them that it gets pretty easy to follow. But where she really shines is her combo skill trigger that is going to allow her to forcibly apply corrosion to enemies and absorb that corrosion to apply a physical and art susceptibility to enemies. There's honestly not really too much to say about Ardellia because she fits so well into so many teams and her kit is really straightforward. However, I will say that because she's free, you could expect to get a copy of her on the banner. Her first potential is going to increase the amount of physical and art susceptibility that enemies get when you use her skill. This first potential is actually pretty decent. It's not going to be a game changer, but it will help your damage out a decent amount, and it's basically free because you don't have to change how the character plays at all to actually get it applied. So if you do happen to get a copy of Ardellia, it's not a bad thing. However, she would definitely be my last pick in this just because you do get one of her for free. If I were you and pulling on this banner, the character that I would be going for is actually the other nature character on the banner. Aside from being the cutest character in the entire game, Gilberta is an incredibly powerful character that fits in most teams. She's incredibly versatile and offers a lot to your team, including huge debuffs on enemies, the ability to lift enemies, and the ability to group up enemies. On top of that, she is able to apply nature infliction, which means that in the right setups, you can apply corrosion, or alternatively, you could use her to set up other reactions as well. A lot of people use Gilberta in cryo teams because she's able to apply a nature infliction and group up enemies first, and a cryo character can be used to freeze the enemies after she's already applied that nature infliction. On top of that, with one of her passive, she's able to give all of your guards, casters, and supporters extra ult gain efficiency, and while it's not actually the most helpful thing for every single character in the game, there are some characters who can't get enough ult gain efficiency without her in the team, so she does provide that. She'll also compensate for any minor misplays or rotational interruptions if your energy is close enough. But the real main reason to get Gilberta is because of the massive art susceptibility she's able to apply with her ultimate. Though it only lasts a short amount of time, if you time it with another character that does a ton of burst damage, Gilberta will increase that damage massively and allow you to burst out significantly more than you would have been able to without her. She's used in a ton of different boss speedruns, and her grouping ability also makes her viable for the average player to bring her into literally any farming content to be able to instantly group up all of the enemies. Gilberta is an incredibly versatile and powerful character, and I highly recommend going for her over the other picks if you do not have her yet. Also, she's really cute, and no, I'm not biased. Now, the last character to talk about is Pogranichnik. This is why I call him Pogman. Pogman is a DPS disguised as a support, or a support disguised as a DPS. He's really just kind of doing everything. First off, because he's a sword user, he can use Thermite Cutter, which can provide a huge attack buff to your team. And with his two passives, he's able to give himself a massive attack and arts intensity buff, but that can also be applied to his teammates with his other passive. He's able to recover a ton of SP, he's able to put out a ton of damage, and lastly, he can apply Breach, which is a pretty rare debuff that either applies a vulnerability or will consume all of the vulnerability stacks and increase physical damage taken by the enemy at the same time. Pogman leans into the vast realm of physical teams, and honestly, physical teams are still being explored to this day because they have so much complexity to how they work, and a rigid rotation doesn't really apply to them. So if you prefer something like freeform damage and freeform rotations, or a really flexible team that plays around all of the characters involved, physical teams can be a lot of fun, and Pogman is a necessary character if you want to take your physical teams to the next level. He's an incredibly powerful character overall, and I wouldn't even classify him as just a support or DPS because he really is doing both. He's going to be powerful SP recovery in the physical team, and there's not many characters that can replace him and also provide a similar amount of value to the amount of buffs and debuffs he provides. Now, with all of that said, there are a lot of physical characters in the game, and you can make a team of physical characters without Pogman. But if you are a physical main, this is probably a character that you are going to want to pick up. However, I am definitely reluctant to tell you to pick him up on this banner, and my reasoning for that is that he is a standard character that you will have opportunities to get on your 50-50 losses on other banners, or just by using your standard 10 pull. In fact, let's recap all the characters that you can pick and which ones are actually going to be the best. The 4 characters that you can pick for this new banner are Laevatain, Ardellia, Pog, and Gilberta. And the reason you would pull on this banner is to get characters that you don't already have. That rules out Ardellia by default. But in addition to that, in my opinion, you should also rule out Pog, because even though Pog is an incredibly powerful character, especially for physical teams, Gilberta and Laevatain are going to be the 2 harder characters to get overall. Laevatain is an incredible AoE DPS, and also she's really hot, and I mean that in a literal sense. Gilberta is an all-around great support, and though Ardellia and Pog are both great characters, one of them is free and the other one you'll probably pick up somewhere along the way. Now between Laevatain and Gilberta, it really just depends what you're looking for on your account. We've had a lot of DPS characters release and not a ton of support characters, and for that reason you may not actually need Laevatain if you pulled any of the other DPSs, but for Gilberta, she's gonna find value literally anywhere you put her. So in my opinion, Gilberta is the character you absolutely 100% want to pick. But if you do happen to get a character on the way to 120, no matter which one of these characters it is, it's basically always gonna be a win, because they are all fantastic. With that said, I hope that this basic overview gave you an idea of who you should be pulling for, and the answer is Gilberta. If you enjoy this type of content or find it helpful, make sure to subscribe down below, because I will be posting Arknights Endfield content for the foreseeable future, and let me know down in the comments if you guys are pulling on this banner or not too. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you next time.